All right, friends, I know I talk a lot about the New York Jets on this show, but that doesn't mean I can't go into enemy territory every once in a while. Up in Foxborough, the Patriots were off to a difficult start to the season, with fans worrying that the dynasty may be coming to an end. But a 6-game winning streak has changed that narrative. This week they play the Titans and former teammate Malcolm Butler, who is the center of some controversial storylines this summer. Joining me on the show today is Joe Calabro from GoLocalProv.com. Joe covers the New England Patriots and is coming in to discuss this weekend's game along with some other happenings in Foxborough and the rest of the league.
Joe, thanks for joining me once again on the show. How are you?
Hey, Nick, it's great to be with you. Always great to be on the sports podcast.
You have to say that as fast as you can. Right? So talk to me a little bit about the Patriots, Joe. I know you cover them pretty heavily for GoLocalProv.com. Tell me what's going on in Patriot world.
Well, after an awful 1-2 start, Patriots are now 7-2, so that's pretty good. And we got the Tennessee Titans on Sunday, 1 p.m. game in Tennessee, then a bye week. So they're just going to get through this week, hopefully be 8-2. And then, again, considering where we started, what we talked about a month or two ago, whatever it was, last time I was on, how, terrible they looked and how disgraceful they looked through 2 out of the first 3 games. 7-2 is pretty good. They added to their offense. They got Edelman back. They acquired Josh Gordon from Cleveland, and he's so far worked out to this point in the season. As we know, with Josh Gordon, things could go off the rails at any time. But so far, he's looked pretty good. He's done a great job. He's been a team player. I think the Patriots are protecting him a lot. For example, in his press conferences after the game, you're only allowed to ask 3 questions. He only takes 3 questions from the media.
Really?
So the Patriots are protecting him a lot. But maybe that's what they have to do. Maybe that's what they feel they have to do. There was a report 2 games ago, I believe it was the Monday night game against Buffalo, where I think Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network reported that Gordon would be benched for the first couple series because he was late, and that Belichick was going to bench him. Well, as it turns out, Gordon played the entire game, didn't miss a series. He actually started, and then Belichick was asked about it after the game, and Belichick said, "You have to talk to the reporter." So basically, Belichick just made the reporter, Ian Rappaport, look bad for reporting that, and he protected his player. Which, if that's what you have to do to keep this guy in line and keep him productive, then, so be it. So it's been a really interesting dynamic. They put his locker right next to Tom Brady's locker in the Patriots locker room at Gillette. I'm sure that wasn't an accident. And so far it's worked out pretty well. Obviously Sony Michel is now down with injuries. Gronk has been in and out all year, but even when he's been in, he hasn't been a huge factor. And I know we'll get to that in a bit, but so far it's 7-2 from where they started. You can't complain too much if you're a Patriots fan right now. And again, there's a lot of factors, but I don't see them losing more than 1 or 2 games the rest of the year at this rate. So.
Yeah, I feel like maybe this is just me as an ignorant, Jets fan here, but I feel like the Patriots always start off, 1-2, 1-3, and it's almost like everybody thinks the dynasty is about to collapse. And then when it's all said and done, 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, it's a totally different story. Players come back. Like you said, Edelman's back now. They brought in Josh Gordon, which I agree with you, was a really smart move. The guy's got some issues, obviously, but the Patriots are great at taking players like that and turning them into team players, fitting that Patriot mold.
At least for a season there, right? Yeah. Randy Moss worked out kind of for a season, a little more than a season. To be fair, in Randy Moss's case, obviously a great receiver. To be fair, his second year, Brady ended up getting injured in the first game of the season. So, in fairness to Moss, he kind of got... I don't say he got screwed because he was still productive, and the Patriots still went 11-5 that season, which was still unbelievable. Yeah. Considering, but to be fair to Randy Moss, he kind of got, kind of screwed in that situation. But for a year there, Corey Dillon worked out, for a year, and then the next year he kind of went off the rails. Randy Moss went off the rails in 2010. I believe, and then they traded him, and they brought back Deion Branch, and that ended up working out for the better. So for a year there, so far, like I said, Josh Gordon has been great. I mean, he's been productive on the field. I think he had a 100-yard game in the Patriots game against the Packers. He had that touchdown catch. He had a big game against the Bears in Chicago. And he hasn't had any issues. But like I said, and this is fine. I mean, this is what you have to do. The Patriots are protecting him. He only takes 3 questions in a post-game press conference. He doesn't really talk to the media during the week. Not really. He did it once, I think.
Yeah.
But not really. And, there was that report from Rappaport that said he was going to be suspended, or not suspended, but benched for the first quarter for tardiness. He wasn't, and did end up being suspended in the first quarter. He ended up playing the whole game, ended up being productive. And then they asked Belichick about it after the game, and he said, "You'll have to ask the reporter about that." So, Belichick kind of protected him there. Now, was he late? Possibly. But again, the Patriots kind of protected him. And so, you know what? If that's what you have to do, sometimes that's what you need. He wasn't getting much protection in Cleveland because Cleveland's a disaster. So, maybe Cleveland could have helped him out. And now, I'm not saying, he was innocent. I'm not, he obviously had major issues. But, maybe an organization like Cleveland couldn't afford to protect him like the Patriots can a little bit. So, again, there's a long way to go. We'll see. But so far he's been super productive, and he's been a good player for the Patriots, and I think Brady's starting to trust him a little bit on the field. So, again, we'll see. Long way to go. But for now, it looks like a pretty big steal for the Patriots. I think they gave up like a 5th round pick for him or something ridiculous. So
of course,
right now it's pretty good.
So talk to me a little bit about Gronkowski. I know you mentioned him, some of his struggles. It helps that, Gordon, like I said, Edelman's back. Gordon's playing great, takes pressure off of Gronkowski, but the guy's been a non-factor for the most part this season.
Gronkowski is a fascinating story. Every week I do 5 things to watch for the Patriots versus whoever, right? I don't know if you've seen stories on Facebook. My slide, I know, not to brag, but I do a decent job on my slideshows with insight and stats and stuff,
Yeah.
And so this week, we knew that Gronk wasn't going to play. So I did a kind of a deep dive into his stats. And he only has 29 catches this year, which is like 6 catches behind where he was last year, which doesn't sound terrible. But when you watch the games, he's really not much of a factor in the offense. He's kind of, he's only been targeted twice in the red zone this year, and he has no red zone catches. He only has 1 touchdown. That was in the first game of the season, but it wasn't in the red zone. It was not a bomb, but a deep ball from Brady. So now he's made some big catches this year, but for the most part, he hasn't been a big factor in the Patriots offense, even when he's been in the offense. So I'm wondering if this week they set him out again. Just say, let's get to the bye week and then, get him healthy. Or, he has back issues.
Yeah.
Early in the season, I think in training camp, he had ankle issues that he missed some time for. So, he's had a lot of issues this year. But even when he's been in the offense, he hasn't been a huge factor. It was quite fascinating because his contract is very much incentive based.
Right.
He has X amount of money. I don't know what the details are offhand. But he gets X amount of money for, touchdowns and catches and games played and whatever. And right now he's way behind those incentives. He has to have a big time second half of the season to achieve those incentives. And so it's quite interesting that he's already missed 2 games, possibly 3 if he misses this week, which is kind of what people are thinking. Again, we don't know for sure because you never really know, but it's been interesting. It's been a weird first half of the season for Gronkowski. He had the drama kind of in the off season where he was threatening to retire for some reason, and then Belichick was going to trade him, and then he said, "No, I don't want to be traded." He refused to be traded. Belichick wanted to trade him to the Lions actually, and he said, "I don't want to be traded." He said, "Tom Brady's the only quarterback that I'm playing for," and so it's quite interesting, and he confirmed the trade happened, which is weird. that never happens in New England.
Yeah.
Gronk confirmed that the trade was going to happen, and that's where he told the media after the Lions game. He said, no, I told him I didn't want to be traded. I told him that Tom Brady's the only quarterback that I'm playing for.
Yeah.
So that kind of came out, and again, it was him that confirmed it. So usually that never happens in New England. Usually these guys are all buttoned up, and so it's been fascinating. It'll be a fascinating rest of the season for Gronkowski to see if he becomes more involved, or maybe there's something else in the works, or maybe he's not healthy. Maybe Belichick knew something that we did about Gronkowski, and that's why he tried to trade him, which is very possible. But so far, it's been a kind of a disappointing year for Gronk, because usually by this time, he's had 6 or 7 touchdowns and he's on top of the league. Well, he's only got 1 touchdown and he's only got 2 red zone targets, which I think is the more alarming thing than the touchdowns. He's only been targeted twice in the red zone.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting the rest of the way. Hopefully he can get back on the field for the Patriots' sake. But they've won games without him. They know how to win without him. It's not like, the world is over because Gronkowski can't play. We won a Super Bowl without him. Granted, that's because Atlanta crapped their pants. I understand that. But, hey, a win's a win, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So, we'll see what happens the rest of the year. We just see if he plays this week, or if they just say, you know what, sit out and come back after the bye week. And I'm thinking that's what they'll do. But for all I know, he could be out there playing and have 6 touchdowns in the game, and the world will be red again.
I mean, it is Gronkowski. You can't count the guy out. So.
Yeah, that's how the Patriots go.
Yeah.
And the drama. I know you mentioned the drama. Everyone said all the Patriots were done at the end of the beginning of the season, and it does seem to happen a lot. I don't know if they've ever started 1-3. I don't think they've done that. 1-3 would have been tough. That Miami game was a must-win in week 3, whatever it was, or week 4, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it felt different this year because of the drama in the offseason. You had the Brady and Guerrero thing. You had Brady didn't show up to mini camps, which he always shows up to. You had Gronk threatening to retire immediately after the Super Bowl. You had the Malcolm Butler situation, and I know we'll get to him in a minute because he's a fascinating story too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why 1 and 2 kind of felt different this year. And they lost to the Lions, which isn't a game they would usually lose after just getting their butts whipped by Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I can't even have a pass on the Jacksonville game because, let's be honest, that was their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right? In Jacksonville, Tom Brady and the Patriots coming in, that's like their Super Bowl in week 2.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's a big game.
And they blew doors, and Jacksonville blew doors in that game, to their credit. But, they haven't done much since. They're back to irrelevancy for the most part, the Jaguars. So that kind of shows you, what that game meant to them. That was their Super Bowl. And so it was also 90 degrees. So I kind of give the Patriots a pass on that one. That was kind of like a scheduled loss, if there is such thing. But the alarming thing was that they came out the next week and got blown out by the Detroit Lions. Now it was in Detroit, but they're not a great team by any stretch. So that was kind of what made it alarming. They didn't really win that game, but then they came back and they won 5 straight since. They beat Miami, who was undefeated at the time. They beat Green Bay, obviously last week. That was a big win.
That was a big win.
Aaron Rodgers to 17 points. And they beat Kansas City. Now, granted, it was a shootout, but hey, they still beat them at Gillette. And now if Kansas City can lose one more game, which they got to play the Rams, so they could, the Kansas City could drop another game, and then the Patriots have home field advantage in the AFC Championship. And so that's kind of what we're looking at now. I mean, the Steelers are dangerous, I guess. But again, they're the Steelers. They'll do something. I think they're playing tonight, right? They're playing Thursday Night Football tonight. I believe against Carolina.
Are they tonight? Is that tonight?
I thought it was. I could be wrong. Thursday night. Again, we're taping this podcast on Thursday, so I believe. I think it is.
Yeah, they're playing in Pittsburgh at 8:30 tonight.
Yeah. So the Steelers are kind of scary just because of Roethlisberger, but we saw what happened to them last year. Yeah. I mean, they completely fell apart. So right now, the Warrior is kind of Kansas City, and if they can lose another game or two, and again, they have to play the Rams, they have to play some tough teams. So
yeah,
then you get the AFC Championship back at Gillette, and let's go. Let's see what Showtime Mahomes has. In the AFC Championship game against Tom Brady, right? At Gillette. In Kansas City it would be tough. I'll give them that. If the Patriots have to go to Kansas City, that'd be a tough AFC Championship game to win.
Yeah.
But if it's in Gillette, I mean, as a Patriots fan, if you're a Patriots fan or whatever, you got to feel decent about your chances in that situation. But we're a long way from that. I understand. But again, this is what we have to go on. This is what football gives us. Week to week, up, down. Most teams, it's just down, down, down. So
I can think of at least one team that's down, down, down all the time.
Yes.
All right, so you did mention Malcolm Butler. We have to talk about this because this, like you said, this was one of the bigger stories coming out of camp, was that they traded away Malcolm Butler.
Well, they didn't trade him. They didn't resign him.
They didn't resign him. Sorry.
Yeah. Malcolm Butler, he's reemerging in the news in New England this week because the Patriots are playing the Titans on Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. Well, obviously, Malcolm Butler played for the Titans. He signed that big contract in the offseason, and I don't have the figures directly in front of me, but it was a big-time deal. It was like number one cornerback money, and to say the least, he's pretty much getting burned on a weekly basis. He got burned last Monday night against the Cowboys. I watched the game specifically to watch Malcolm. He basically got burned on two big plays in which the Cowboys scored touchdowns on. Now, Titans won the game, which I was kind of surprised at, but
right.
That just says more about the Cowboys, I think, than the Titans. But nonetheless, he got burned on two big plays, and so I did some research because that's going to be my big kind of focus this week because it's a fascinating story, right? Belichick benched him in the Super Bowl. There was a lot of outcry. Now, I'm not saying, Butler's current status, and he should have that gives Belichick gets Belichick off the hook. Because I still think it was a dumb move to bench him in that particular situation, in that particular defense. But if you look at Butler this year, Pro Football Focus, which is kind of a stats-based football website and kind of stats and analysis, is one in Pro Football Reference, the two of the big sites I used. Malcolm Butler is ranked as the 82nd best cornerback in the league. 82nd best, and he's got a score. I believe his score is like 59.
Wow.
Right? So it's like, what happened? It's like, boy, what kind of a fall. He left the Patriots. There was a lot of controversy about the benching, etc. He signs a major contract in the offseason. Again, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I remember I wrote about it with the Titans, and now he's kind of getting burned on a weekly basis. So it's kind of come back in the news this week. Obviously, a lot of the media talking about reliving that whole Malcolm Butler saga. And now it's kind of interesting to see how far he's fallen in the league. By comparison, Stephon Gilmore, who a lot of people thought was terrible at the beginning of last season, he struggled. He's ranked as the fourth best cornerback in the league, according to Pro Football Focus. So it's quite interesting. It should be an interesting lead up into Sunday's game, and I'll be doing a deep dive into it, into Butler's stats and exactly how he's getting beat and whatever. In my preview that'll be up Sunday morning on Go Local Prop and Go Local Worcester, just for the record. So I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, there's other storylines too. Mike Vrabel is the coach of the Titans. He obviously used to play for the Patriots. As part of that Patriots original dynasty years. And so that'll be a story. And Deion Lewis is another guy, a running back, that used to play with the Patriots last year. He left the Patriots. He went off to Tennessee. I haven't looked much into him yet, but he'll be another guy I'll be looking at to see how he's doing in his new surroundings. Because the Patriots haven't really missed the beat in the running game. Obviously, Tony Michel's been out, but he's expected to come back this week. And he's been pretty good. I don't think the Patriots should have drafted him in the first round because he's a running back, but he's been pretty good so far, other than the first couple of games where he didn't have much of a preseason. So the first couple of games were kind of his preseason.
Yeah.
But he's been really good, and the Patriots running game has been as good as maybe it's ever been, arguably. We've been using Cordero Patterson as a running back. Who knew? And it's working. So, it's interesting week, and then bye week. And I think we play the Jets next after that in 2 weeks.
Right. Yep.
The Jets
Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, so we'll put our B team in for that game. And
it's all right. Sam Darnold will still throw like 4 interceptions, so not to worry.
Yeah.
Just as long as it's not another butt fumble, I can't handle that on a Thanksgiving weekend again.
Yeah, well, don't worry. The B team will be in. We may even start Brian Hoyer. You never know. No, but the Jets always play the Patriots tough. It's always an exciting game. So I think Sam Darnold is still a good pick. Obviously, he's going to struggle. I mean,
it's a rookie. He's in a rookie year. The team's not very good. He doesn't have a lot of weapons around him. They just lost. Bilal Powell. I think that he needs more time to flourish. If he's going to be a franchise quarterback, he just needs more time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to, he's going to struggle. He's going to have struggles. Like you said, the team isn't that great around him. He doesn't have a ton of protection. I mean, he's getting killed in the pocket, right? I mean, he's running out of the pocket
their O-line is terrible.
Yeah, so, they had to bring some help in for him, but I think that was the right pick, so he'll be good.
Yeah.
And, I was hoping that Miami was going to stay good and give the Patriots some competition, but that's not working out too well either. And so that's too bad. But, the rest of the season will be interesting. Patriots have a ton of tough games left. They have Minnesota at home at Gillette in a couple of weeks. That'll be interesting. The Vikings, and then they have at Pittsburgh. Those are the two games that would be interesting. And by the time we get to Pittsburgh, who knows what their record could be? Because I feel like they're vulnerable in some ways. You watch their games, and it's just like they're barely squeaking by some of these games.
Yeah,
and they should have won to Cleveland at the beginning of the season. They don't have Le'Veon Bell, and this kid Connors is pretty good, so give him credit. But Le'Veon Bell, and now they're saying that they don't even think Le'Veon Bell's going to come back.
I mean, at this point, just trade the guy or something. Did you see the pictures of him on the jet ski? He's got like a big beer belly going on now. I don't even think he's working out at this point.
Yeah. So we'll see. By the time we get to Pittsburgh, we'll see what it means. But again, they're Pittsburgh, and they, last year they talked kind of a lot of trash before the playoffs, and they ended up, not even getting to the Patriots before they ended up losing to Jacksonville. Yeah. So
I don't quite think they're at that same level as the Patriots and the Chiefs. Don't get me wrong; they're probably one step below, but they're not quite as good as those two teams this year.
No, you wouldn't think so. If they have to go to Kansas City, I think Kansas City will beat them. But again, the big thing is, right now Kansas City has home field advantage over the Patriots for, by one game. And if the Patriots were to go undefeated the rest of the season, which isn't impossible, and Kansas City loses another game, which they could because they got to play the Rams.
Yeah.
In Mexico City, it's a neutral site. For some reason. But that's another story.
I feel like a lot of the Mexico City fans are going to root for LA, though. I don't know. Maybe that's just my fault.
Probably. They could. So, we'll see. If they lose one more game, then all of a sudden it's a different story because now the AFC Championship is in Gillette. And you got to feel good if you're a Patriots fan if you have a home game, against Kansas City or against anybody in the AFC Championship. But there's other teams, too, that have been impressive so far. And I don't watch a ton of football other than the Patriots. I mean, I pay attention, obviously. But the LA Chargers are having a good year.
Yes,
Phillip Rivers.
They're flying under the radar right now, the Chargers.
Yeah, no one's talking about them. Yeah. So could they go in and knock somebody off? Maybe. Who knows?
Nobody's even going to their games.
Houston is rolling.
Yeah.
Houston Texans are rolling. Obviously, in the NFC, Des Bryant just signed with the Saints. Excuse me.
That's big.
What was it, yesterday or today, or whatever it was? He signed with the Saints.
Last night, I think, yeah.
So that's good. That'd be interesting to see how he works with Drew Brees. And the NFC, obviously the Eagles, they just signed somebody big. Traded for somebody big.
They just traded for Golden Tate from the Lions. That was last Wednesday.
Yeah. So usually have them. Carson Wentz is back. They've kind of had a lackluster season in some ways after winning last year, but They're always a threat. And then there's a couple of teams. Obviously, Green Bay's. I think they're out of it. I think they're 3-4-1. That's the other thing. Pittsburgh has that tie, which kills them, and right in the standings. So there's something that hurts them. But Green Bay, I think they're probably done at this point. Let's say you go on a crazy run, which they could, I guess. So it should be really interesting the rest of the season. It always is in the NFL for the most part. I know the last few games, last few weeks, they're all division games. Obviously the Patriots division is pretty much terrible for the umpteenth year in a row. Mm-hmm. But it should be interesting to see the seedings and who ends up kind of emerging. Yeah, I think the LA Chargers are a sleeper team to knock somebody off. And it could be the Patriots. Who knows? You never know. They don't play each other this year, so we don't know what that matchup looks like.
Yeah.
Philip Rivers obviously is always a threat. He's a dangerous quarterback. But it should be interesting the rest of the way to see who kind of emerges and who's for real, and if Kansas City can keep their magic going. So if Kansas City has home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the AFC anyway, obviously the Super Bowl is neutral. That Arrowhead Stadium, that's a tough place to play. And they're going to be rocking for an AFC Championship game over there. So if they can keep it going, that game against the Rams obviously is huge and in several different ways. Obviously, the undefeated thing is off the table because the Rams lost last week to the Saints. But if that could be a big game for home field advantage, because I don't think, like I said, the Patriots might lose one more game. But I don't see them losing many more than that at this point. Again, you never know. Things happen. Injuries happen, whatever. But it doesn't seem like, looking at their schedule, they don't lose more than one more game. And that's either going to be maybe Minnesota, although Minnesota's coming to Gillette, or to maybe at Pittsburgh. But again, that Pittsburgh game is weeks away. And who knows what Pittsburgh's going to look like by then, if they're even going to be relevant. As far as the overall AFC standings go, they should make the playoffs, but so we'll see.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. Any last-minute thoughts, Joe, or have we pretty much covered everything?
No, we went through the whole league. Interesting game this week with the Patriots playing Minnesota. Interesting game tonight with Pittsburgh playing Carolina Thursday night. I'll be interested to see what happens coming out of that game. That's a tough game for them. And then the Patriots Tennessee Titans on Sunday afternoon. Patriots versus Malcolm Butler. And like I said, Malcolm Butler is currently ranked by Pro Football Focus as one of the worst cornerbacks in the league, 82nd overall. So just a few months after getting a major deal from the Titans, signing a big-time contract, and he's getting beat. I watched him last week, like I talked about. I really focused on just him, and he's getting beat. So it'll be interesting. Interesting storylines going into this game. It's not the most exciting game in the world, but there's a few interesting storylines that I'll be focused on for my preview that'll go up on Sunday morning. You can check out on Go Local Props Twitter page. I'll retweet it from my Twitter page, and obviously it'll be on my Facebook page, as all my articles and stories are. And then it should be a lot of fun. But I'm looking forward to this week. Looking forward to diving in deeper to the Texans. I'll probably start that probably Friday-ish. And then, mixed in with some college basketball stuff. And then we'll go from there. But really appreciate you having me on. It's always great to talk to you. And don't worry, you only have a few more weeks of the Jets season to go.
All right. Thanks for rubbing that in, Joe. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, did you enjoy that clip? Oh, awesome. I'm glad to hear it. You can hit that subscribe button below. That way you can find out anytime we post a new video. You can find us on Twitter at Sports3x Podcast, or email us, sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Apple Podcasts. Just type in Sports with Nick Drago. New episodes come out every Sunday night.